Book Monster Mitch, it's time. You won't see this until October 1st or somewhere around there, but it's September 20th. As of recording this, it's time to give you what I've been saying for weeks, months, forever. It seems like an eternity. I'm joking. Uh, a little bit. It feels like an eternity. Um, for the long-awaited heart-shaped box review, discussion, whatever you want to consider it. By Joe Hill, son of Stephen King. Like I said, I'm recording this September 20th at 3 in the afternoon, thereabouts, Louisiana, Central Daylight Time, US. You won't see this till October 1st, is when I believe I'll set it to, premiere for Spooktober 2025 season. So let's get it done. Um, so when the book starts out, by the way, I won't go beat by beat, plot detail. I will give spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled and haven't read the book, you've been warned, turn away now, pretty much. 2.5 minutes into the video, your one and only warning for spoilers. Okay. Um, Book starts out, and Judas Cone is a former lead singer of a rock band. I forget if they named the rock band. I forget the proper name of the rock band. But when the book starts out, his career is long over. I don't even know if they uh, mention how many years it's been since he and his band members, Dizzy and Jerome, I believe, were the other two band members' names. I forget if they mentioned how long it's been. I know since the book has begun, um, Dizzy and Jerome both passed. Jerome, I believe, in a car crash, a head-on collision with a tree, more or less on purpose. And I believe Dizzy had some, fatal uh, ailment. I want to say the book said, or has it described as Dizzy had AIDS. Um, don't quote me, but I'm almost positive that's what the disease was that Dizzy passed away from. So anyway, when the book starts out, Joe Hill gives a little background on Jude, who is formerly, his former name is Justin Kaczynski. That's his birth name, but he since changed it to Judas Cone. Um, Not too many people call him Justin, except for, you know, immediate family members such as his dad and an aunt by marriage. Um, so yeah. Um, Everybody else knows him as Judas Cone or just Jude. Um, so they give a little background on Jude's, collection of obscure things that he has, such as, not limited to, a letter from or a confession from a 16th or possibly 17th century uh, witch in Salem, Massachusetts. I won't go into detail with what the letter said, but it basically says that she performed rituals and witchcraft, and then they executed her, I believe. Um, so he also has a skull with um drilled out holes in it. You know, somebody drilled holes in the skull. That was from a possessed person, supposedly, and the drilled holes were to let the demon or evil spirits out. So he basically just has that for what reason? Don't know, but in the holes he has ink pens, I believe, or nails possibly. Anyway, and then his prized possession, and I use the term loosely, but his most valued personal possession that he's got in his collection is they call it snuff film, but what it is a homemade videotape of Mexican cartel, I believe, executing a male and female, uh, boy and girl, teenager, um, and that comes up a handful of times throughout the story, but actually it said at one point that Jude left it where he was pretty sure his ex-wife would find it and watch it. He just had that, mentality at whatever point in his marriage. So Anyway, nice guy, huh? So, and then he lives in a farmhouse in upstate New York. Honestly, for a little while, I was confused and thought it was somewhere in California because his manager or whoever, Danny Wooten, that has an office attached to Jude's farmhouse. Um, he is from somewhere in California. So, I don't know, I guess after they said that, I said, oh, okay, this story is taking place in California, and just moved on from there, not thinking about it. But then I realized it's really taking place upstate New York. Although eventually it becomes a road story or traveling story, but that comes later. The very beginning and a good chunk of it takes place in the upstate New York farmhouse. So, um, and then he also has a poster from a framed poster on the wall of Danny's office from one of his tours. In the poster, it has a depiction of a jar of filled with eyeballs. Yes, eyeballs. With nerve endings hanging out the back. Um, yeesh is all I have to say. Um, but then he also has a live-in girlfriend. I use that in air quotes. That's why I said it that way. She's known, or he knows her as Georgia, like the state, because apparently he has had relationships with other girls, women from other states. They don't say how many of the 50 U.S. states, but Georgia, Florida, and then toward the end, Tennessee, but that comes later. That's later, nearly the end of the story. Um, the woman, excuse me, the woman from Tennessee comes into the picture, whom, by the way, is his lawyer at the time of the story. But when he was, you know, 20 years before the story takes place, um, his lawyer was in law school, and I guess they had a fling relationship, whatever. And she was from Tennessee, so he called her Tennessee at the time, although her true name is Nan, Nan. But anyway, so Georgia is, think, I think maybe in her 20s, somewhere around there. And Jude himself, by the way, for the story, is in his mid 50s. Like I said, a washed out rock and roll star. So, yeah. Uh, Georgia is 30 years his junior, more or less. And she's a goth chick. Um, don't judge me by saying goth chick. How they describe her uh, when the story, starts out. So then, as time goes on, Danny, his manager, accountant, whatever he is, gets an email notification um, talking about a haunted men's suit. So, you know, they bid on it, they get the suit comes in, and it comes in this heart shaped box. Hence the title of the story. Now, personally, speaking of the title, it's fine. Like I just said, the suit comes in a heart shaped box like you would give Valentine candy, I guess. But, you know, as the story goes on, I'm not criticizing the author by any means, but he could have come up with a better title than Heart Shaped Box. They keep talking about the Night Road, which I guess apparently that's what the dead spirits travel on after they, pass on and go into eternity. I guess from the way the story describes the Night Road, that could have been a suitable title, or uh, pick up a ghostly pickup truck, something. Um, because the ghost that haunts Jude um, rides in this smoky blue or gray pickup truck. Um, so they could have used either, like I said, the Night Road or some variation of, you know, a pickup truck in the title. Personally, that's just me. Overall, the story was pretty well put together. Uh, I would have, maybe given the title a second look, and because honestly, in chapter three, I believe, three or four, um, Jude, puts the heart shaped box that the suit came in an upstairs closet tucked away and really never spoken of again. there is a mention of a heart-shaped box again a couple of times, but in a different context to the story itself. So I don't know, but I'm not nitpicking. I'm just letting you know that personally, I would have maybe gone with another title. Um, so also be warned, there is unintentional animal cruelty in the story. What I mean by unintentional, Jude has two dogs by the names of Bon and Angus. I believe Bon, Bon, is the female dog and Angus the male. I don't remember the breeds, if they're the same breed or not, but Bon, toward the end of the story, gets shot. Not purposely, but still and all, gets shot. And then Angus ends up passing away on the back seat of Jude's Mustang. Um, so I'm not gonna divulge in any detail of why, how, anything like that. Just be warned that, if you're an animal lover, especially a dog lover, there's that also. Um, and it's implied, not shown in any detail, but implied heavily of child sexual assault. Um, so much so that pictures are found, pictures are shown, and, you know, things of that nature. They don't go into detail of what the pictures are and um, what the pictures entail, but it's heavily implied. So, um, if those things bother you, I wouldn't read this. If you can kind of look past it as a part of a fictional story, um, then go ahead, read it. I think if you're a Stephen King fan, and like ghost stories, especially Stephen King's The Shining, uh, this is done on a smaller scale than The Shining. And although The Shining mainly focuses on three characters in a haunted hotel, this story, Heart-Shaped Box, primarily focuses on two characters uh, with a ghost, you know, haunting them. So, you know, similarities, but a little different at the same time. Um, Trying to think of what else I can tell you without any more major plot points or whatever. Another downside for me is that, you know, toward the end in a flashback dream sequence, fever dream, I guess, they they talk about how, you know, um, they're gonna attach the spirit to the men's suit, but they don't go into detail. So that's a downside to me. Um, I would have been interested to know about, you know, how they went about doing that. I thought they would have, you know, maybe not going into extreme detail, but a lot more than they did. They just said, okay, I'm gonna tell you how to do it, and then they moved on from there. Um, that's a simplified version of the way it went, but not not too simplified. Uh, Simply put, because that's pretty much how it went. So the name of the spirit or the name of the person whose ghost is haunting Jude in Georgia is Morton Craddock. Um, and in life, he was a hypnotist by trade, and he had this razor sharp pendulum that he swung back and forth. And he basically wanted to take, he and his older stepdaughter wanted to take revenge for, you know, Florida Anna uh, killing herself. Air quotes again, because that's not what ended up happening, but read and find out. That's all I can say. Because it's worth reading and being surprised on your own ra- rather than being told this is what happened, this is how it happened. So, should this book be read? Absolutely yes. If you're a fan of ghost stories, if you're a fan of Stephen King, begin with, absolutely read this book. It's only 370 pages thereabout. I read it on Kindle, which, like I said, my Kindle unfortunately gave out maybe by the time this video is uploaded or you see this video, maybe that could be, situated where I'll have either my current Kindle in working order or maybe another one, but as of recording this, after I read this book, after I finished this book, a day or two later, it stopped working. The Kindle stopped working. Another chilling aspect for me personally, before I let you go with this story, is the office phone, Danny's office phone, rang one night, and the area code on the caller ID was a Louisiana area code where I live, and it just so happened the area code was um, the area code that my area of Louisiana has. I won't say what that is, but it just freaked me out. Which, in hindsight, that's what you want out of horror thriller. But, so like I said, definitely give this a read if you haven't. Eventually I'll go back into um, Joe Hill's catalog and read another book. But I'm glad um, for one that I read this RJ box, and for two, it was my first Joe Hill experience because it just really got me enthusiastic. And I'm sure you can tell that not only from this video, but from previous videos when I spoke of reading this. Honestly, I hyped this book up more than I hyped up Heir to the Empire, Star Wars, Thrawn Book 1. Night and day comparison, but one's thriller horror, the other one's space adventure sci-fi. So, like I say, night and day difference, but still in all well above, Star Wars by any means. Uh, so with that, I'm gonna let you go. Been over 30 minutes now. Have a good day, good evening. This is the kickoff to Spooktober 2025. I hope you enjoyed this. And like I said, it's been a long time coming. So, love each other, take care of each other, and we'll talk again soon.